Every person has a number that quietly controls how much money they make, how much they save, how much they spend. Most people never discover what theirs is, and for many, it was set before they turned 10. Meet someone we'll call Marcus, mid 30s, decent income, reads the books, listens to the podcasts, gets a raise. 3 months later, nothing changes. The savings disappear. The stress comes back. A few years pass. Another raise, same outcome. Again, and again, and again. Marcus doesn't understand why. And the most unsettling part, he's not unusual. Millions of people spend their entire lives running into the same invisible wall. The question is, what exactly are they hitting? For decades, psychologists have studied a strange pattern. People who desperately want different financial outcomes often recreate the same ones. Not once, not twice, sometimes for decades, even when their income changes, even when their circumstances improve, even when they know exactly what they should be doing, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if the biggest force shaping your financial life isn't your salary or inflation or even your financial knowledge? What if it's something you inherited years ago, something you never consciously chose? If you've ever felt like you're working harder than your financial results suggest you should be, subscribe, because this isn't a video about budgeting. It's a video about the hidden system quietly steering your decisions. Section 1. The pattern nobody notices. Most people think financial progress is a math problem. Earn more, spend less, invest the difference. Simple. And yet, millions of intelligent people know these rules while still struggling to follow them, which creates a contradiction. If knowledge were enough, financial success would be much more common, but it isn't, because information changes behavior far less than we like to believe. In reality, most decisions happen long before logic gets involved, which leads to a deeper question. If logic isn't driving the car, what is? Section 2. The story you inherited. Every person grows up absorbing ideas about money, not through lessons, through observation, watching parents worry about bills, hearing arguments about expenses, listening to comments about rich people, successful people, greedy people, lucky people. The brain absorbs all of it, quietly, automatically, without permission. Over time, these observations become assumptions, and assumptions become stories. Stories about what money means, stories about what wealthy people are like, stories about what kind of life feels normal. Most people never question these stories because they don't feel like stories. They feel like reality. But that's only part of the story, because beliefs alone don't explain why people keep repeating the same outcomes. Something deeper is happening. Section 3. The financial thermostat. Imagine a thermostat set to 70 degrees. If the room becomes too warm, the system pulls it back down. If it becomes too cold, the system pushes it back up. The goal isn't improvement, the goal is consistency. Human beings often operate the same way financially. Everyone has an internal idea of what feels normal, what feels safe, what feels deserved, what feels familiar. And when reality drifts too far from that internal setting, something strange happens. People often pull themselves back, sometimes by overspending, sometimes by avoiding opportunities, sometimes by making decisions that make absolutely no sense on paper. The mind would rather preserve a familiar identity than embrace an unfamiliar future. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. But there's a catch. This thermostat isn't controlling money, it's controlling something else entirely. Section 4. The survival brain. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on scarcity. Limited food, limited resources, limited opportunities. The people who worried survived. The people who didn't often didn't. The problem is that modern life changed faster than the human brain. The survival system never left. It simply found new targets. Today, many people treat money the same way their ancestors treated food. Protect it, guard it, never risk it, never lose it. At first, this sounds responsible, but excessive protection creates an unexpected problem. People become so focused on avoiding losses, they stop pursuing gains. They become defensive instead of creative. And that changes the way they see every opportunity. Which brings us to one of the strongest forces in human psychology. Number 5. Why the brain loves playing defense. Think about the last time you had an opportunity to negotiate something. A salary, a contract, a price. Most people don't. Not because they believe they'll fail, but because the possibility of losing feels worse than the possibility of gaining. The math says one thing, the brain says another. The math says ask. The brain says stay safe. The math says invest. The brain says wait. The math says leave the dead end situation. The brain says maybe things will improve. Again and again, the brain chooses familiarity, even when familiarity is expensive. Which finally brings us to the question underneath everything we've discussed. What exactly is the brain protecting? Here's what connects everything: the stories you inherited, the financial thermostat, the survival brain, the fear of loss, the repeating patterns. None of them are actually about money. They're about identity. Every financial decision is quietly asking one question: is this who I am? Someone who earns this much? Someone who saves this much? Someone who risks this much? Someone who deserves this much? Change the budget, and the identity pushes back. Change the strategy, and the identity pushes back. Change the spreadsheet, and the identity pushes back. Because your financial life isn't trying to maximize wealth, it's trying to remain consistent with who you believe you are. And that's why information alone rarely changes anything. Most people already know what they should do. The question is whether the person they believe themselves to be will allow them to do it. And once you understand that, decades of confusing financial behavior suddenly begin to make sense. The financial divide isn't always between people who know more and people who know less. Often, it's between people following different internal stories. One person sees opportunity, another sees danger. One sees investment, another sees risk. One sees possibility, another sees limitation. Same economy, same information, same world. Different script. If you enjoy exploring the hidden forces shaping money, behavior, work, and modern life, subscribe for future videos. Because sometimes the most important financial decision isn't changing your strategy, it's discovering who chose the strategy in the first place.